Hi everyone, I'm Mantz. I'm architect, co-founder of Z4A Architects, assistant professor and director of the Material Research Collaborative at the Gerald D. Hines College of Architecture and Design at the University of Houston. My presentation aims to build a bridge between my research and a studio class called Material Culture from the Object to the Workshop. The course explores the reintroduction of the workshop in the city from the domestic space. DIY has triggered emerging architectural practices that may also result from reassembling existing items, giving value to the obsolete or the residue. The paper highlights the need to breathe life into workshops and seek a comeback in workshop spaces for shared coexistence as a new dimension in 21st century housing. But before presenting the course on material culture from the object to the workshop, I would like to share a brief overview of the research context to which it belongs. So the essential question that guides all my work, from the practice to the teaching and research, is mainly a synthesis within the juxtaposition of the two Greek words ego, I am, and geo, which means earth. Indeed, my main interest focuses on how architecture mediates the relationship between the subject and the earth planet. Within the Anthropocene era, how can the project of architecture or the design mediate the relation between human beings and the Earth planet? My research is based on three main lines: technical and temporal ecology, matterscapes, and from the domestic to the territory. So the first one, on technical and temporal ecology, aims to build a different sensibility within our living spaces, observing living milieu and its temporal and technical ecologies, provide new directions and sources of inspiration for the development of society and the spaces we inhabit. Matterscapes defends the construction of an ethos to redefine our cultural relationship with the material world. And finally, the third line, called from the domestic to the territory, analyzes the possibilities of reprogramming the domestic with more hybrid spaces capable of settling different modes of existence. Each line is an entanglement between academia and practice, exploring methods, pedagogical tools, and researching technical solutions. All the works aim to establish a corpus of ecological thinking in architecture. And today I will focus on the idea of the great handyman, or le grand bricoleur in French, that gave birth to the third-year studio course taught within the interior architecture program at the University of Houston and called Material Culture from the Object to the Workshop. Within the relationship between ego and geo, I'm interested in the mode of existence of the grey handyman and the DIY. In order to decipher this marginal activity, I started to observe it from the French cultural lens. Within the context of the pandemic, France, like many other countries, hoped to promote new ways of inhabiting the domestic space after COVID. However, certain models have emerged from a slower transformation process. Herein, the research examines how do-it-yourself work, beyond just a marginal activity, may indicate paradigm changes in French society. DIY heightens the need to learn to deal with contingencies and allow us to become role players in manual production processes. In accordance with terms laid down by Richard Sennett, DIY is the emergence of new ways of moving towards collective action that takes place before awareness. The research observes how DIY could generate changes in people's behaviors, and thus offers the possibility of a new model toward a shared economy that will promote a social organization based on heterarchy. However, in order to be able to play a role in both 21st century housing and the contemporary city, action taken on matter must be spatially legitimized. Therefore, the paper discusses the historical role of Homo faber along with its workshop in the construction of La Cité or Civitas in France. Before being exclusively attributed to the artist, the workshop or atelier shifted between different terms such as boutique or a shop, or mean a craftsman's workspace. Regardless, these terms have always been laden with commercial connotations. These spaces have always represented the spatial dimension for the production of objects. It is there where man, craftsman, or artist has assembled and transformed materials and or objects. Within the space of the workshop, the human body is put into action upon matter and can give new value to leftover materials. In the transition from prehistory to history, the technical handling of materials like stone, bronze, and clay generated craftsmanship from which different societal models were established. Accordingly, the workshop is the spatial representation of the craftsman's world. In the 19th century, architect Eugène Viollet-le-Duc described boutiques or shops as domestic spaces. In cities like Paris and in the less populated urban areas that make up the rural world, the workshop forms an integral part of the architecture in the landscape. With time, the workshop closely linked to domestic space became more individualized as a workshop. Because of their location on facade, workshops were expressed architecturally and therefore became legitimized in the public street. Consequently, they became a basic feature in the construction of urban centers in France. In other words, this transformation, which made the craftsman's professionalization apparent, enhanced the presence of the workshop boutique as a role player within the urban environment. Although the 19th and 20th centuries eliminated workshops within France's urban factories and saw the disappearance of Homo faber as a role player in La Cité, DIY activity continued within domestic spaces. DIY, still a poorly defined marginal activity, became a study subject in human and social sciences during the second half of the 20th century. The future of space for transformation, or DIY activity, converged with the praise of creative integration as an economic model that meets man's need for meaning. In 2011, the economist Jeremy Rifkin predicted a third industrial revolution. The American economist and ecologist established sustainable economic models based on innovation and value creation. These models gave rise to what he calls cultural capitalism. This new, more horizontal economic model is driven by the internet, the emergence of new domestic tools, and a reduction of the value chain. This innovative framework for action will lead to the developing of a distributed cooperative economy, giving man greater autonomy. Regarding the legitimization of DIY as a mode of existence, the paper builds parallels between the renewed appreciation of DIY and the role of the great handyman. a large-scale DIY practitioner already played by the latest generations of French architects. Thus, DIY is viewed as a way of being in the world that will lead to constructing a new economic and productive model during the era of ecological transition. The paper defends the legitimization of the workshop that will lead to a new ethos regarding our material culture. In the fall 2022, I taught a third-year studio within the interior architecture program at the Gerald D. Hines College of Architecture and Design, where students explored the possibility of internalizing the workshop within the domestic space. The studio course developed a project based on transforming a garage into a workshop. The diversity of the design proposals illustrates the possibility of interior architecture to impulse a new shared economy based on repairing, transforming, fixing, and reassembling obsolete objects, innovative materials, and matter. Every project offers a specific insight into a possible individual business related to the flow of matter and materials that can be transformed within the domestic space. The site of each project is located in Monroe's neighborhood in Houston, Texas. Those Google Map photos are examples of the different facades that compose the neighborhood, from individual houses to new townhouses. The course aims to explore how interior architecture can trigger new ways of living related to the flow of matter and the accelerated obsolescence of our everyday life objects. One of the premises of the studio class is based on considering that the use of individual cars will become obsolete in the near future. This phenomenon is related to a new approach to transportation, communication, and energy called the Third Industrial Revolution by the economist Jeremy Rifkin in 2011. The Third Industrial Revolution will happen thanks to the synergies between renewable energies and new information and telecommunication technologies. Herein, the paper's argument will build upon the hypothesis of an energy transition produced individually that might impulse a new economic model and social organization. According to Rifkin, electric cars will be shared by many individuals and will not be anymore a personal belonging. Consequently, the garage space within the family house will offer an opportunity to be redefined in terms of program, as it will offer the possibility for a spatial reassemblage. In other words, the garage might be the new old or the old new space capable of linking the domestic with the urban fabric, the individual with the collective, and the inside with the outside. Before jumping into a design strategy, each student's team had to define a possible business activity by observing obsolete objects and matters flow that travel inside out, outside in our home. The garage hybrid activity extends to the domestic space's facade. Then, the workshop opens up a conversation with the city by internalizing a small piece of a bigger infrastructure's network. The result of this speculation offers hybrid microstations towards a more convivial neighborhood. Despite the little experience of the students fulfilled with excitement, the course aims to explore the workshop as a space where the representation of the world evolves into a kind of mixing. The mineral, the animal, the vegetable, the machine, the tools, and the human, which constantly exchange properties. There is the exoplastic belly, that will collect the plastic waste of a housing block to be transformed and pre-digested for the city, or a wasted art supply station where objects and materials are collected from the schools located in the neighborhood. The station aims to offer after-school fine arts activities while educating on material culture. Or a station based on transforming undervalued soils for new old objects, soils that come from the transformation or demolished material environment. Or there will be a cafe book exchange that triggers social leisure encounters and, why not, micropolitics for the everyday life. From the object to the workshop, from the workshop to the city. All the proposals aim to open a new conversation between the domestic and the urban fabric on material culture. Obsolete objects, undervalued wood, more than humans production, third landscape, plastic, paper, soil, textiles, humans, tools, machines, all are actors who participate in an ecology of things. The proposals aim to link the individual to the collective, the inside to the outside, and the domestic to the territory. In other words, the workshop wants to mediate the relations between ego and geo. In conclusion, the common space of the workshop creates the potential for bringing back a space for transforming matter. It will be within the new types of housing built in the 21st century. The workshop makes sense as part of contemporary domestic life, with its accumulation of objects and leftover material flows. This essay defends an ecosophist view of man through DIY within the production unit formed by his dwelling. The man who produces may act at different scales, from the workshop to the city. DIY and the workshop are used on the path toward ecological transition. They appear to be a catalyst for the individual strength of Homo faber in moving towards an economic, social, and political reorganization. Thank you.